Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel. We're back down the G unit and we're back with a car you have seen on the channel before. This is my daily driver Mk5 Golf TDI. It's coming up for its MOT, so I've got a few little jobs I need to do. But there is in fact a long list of niggly little jobs that I've just been putting off. As all daily drivers, it kind of gets put to the back of the queue. If the Audi needs anything, it gets brought straight in. But with all daily drivers, you just keep limping it along. But I'm determined to get it through this MOT because it is coming up to a major milestone. This car has actually done 243,000 miles and I'm determined to get it to that 250,000 checkpoint. I bought this with just over 200,000 miles on it for £500 because at the time I was using the RS6 as a daily driver, not that fuel efficient. Straight away got in this and went from 15 to the gallon in the Audi to an easy 50-60 to the gallon in this. So the £500 paid for itself in the first week. So it really does deserve to get these little tinkering jobs sorted out today. I've got quite a few lights on the dash. There's quite a few things around the car that don't work. So this week we're going to give it some love and get these jobs ticked off. So most of the little things that don't work are little electrical gremlins. The rear wiper stopped working, the reverse light stopped working. So I'm kind of thinking it might be a wiring loom problem where it goes through into the boot, where they go up and down over the years. They sometimes have a wire break. So I'm going to look into that at the back. And the same kind of thing on this driver's door. Because if you think 243,000 miles, that's a lot of door openings. And also, like I said, I've done 40,000 miles in it, but maybe only twice a year it actually goes further than 10 miles from my house. So that just shows how many in and outs I actually do. So what I've noticed for quite a while is all the buttons on the door card only work when the door closed. If you open the door, nothing happens with the buttons. And then you get to a point about here, the buttons all illuminate and start working again. So again, I think there's a problem in the loom where it just bent and we've got a few wires. But something I've noticed recently, which I don't know how long it's been going on, is if you lock the car, happy days, alarm's all good, alarm's all set. That's locked. That's locked. All the other doors are locked. But this one doesn't lock. So I'm not sure how long it's been like that. The alarm does work when you open the door, which is how I accidentally found out. I forgot to unlock it, opened it, and it opened, but the alarm went off. So I think we've got some wiring problems in there as well. And on this side, we may have an MOT problem. As you can see, the car is really tidy. It's not your usual rusty Mk5. It has had new wings in the past, so there's no rust on the front. And overall, it is pretty tidy. But in the past, someone had jacked it up on the sill, which split all the paint, and eventually that did rust through. So for an MOT a couple of years ago, I did put a lower sill on this, and that all passed fine. I just went from the door line down. But not long ago, when my son was getting in this side, because he sits in the front, he noticed down here some little bubbles. And I thought it was just paint reacting or something like that. So we gave it a little push with our thumb, and actually went straight through. And we haven't got much A-pillar. In fact, oops. Yeah, so I've still got the upper part. Hopefully that will cover this and I can just bang a plate over the top. That might not be MOT failure, but doesn't look great. And my other son that sits in the back has been complaining about the roof lining, getting it in the way, because we have got a big saggy roof lining, so it's getting down to almost head height now. So what I think I'm going to try and do, I'm not going to take the whole thing out, but if we can just get it to stick up a bit. Oh, we're coming out at the back now as well. So if I can just spray some glue in, maybe get it to stick up a little bit better. Another one of those niggly jobs just needs ticking off. In here is when we turn the ignition on, we get airbag fault and check brake pads. So I did renew the brake pads, but the problem is the socket that the brake pads click into for the wear sensors all fell apart. So that's a bad connection in there somewhere. So we're going to have a look at that. But when you start it, see, all we've got left on is the brake pad light and the airbag light. So as always, knowledge is power, so we're going to plug in the VAGCOM and give it a full scan to see what the whole car says, and that might give us some pointers to what the problems are. So we're in VCDS, let's give it an auto scan, and we are CAN bus, so it should find itself. Okay, so we've got a lot of red. Engine, central electrics, airbag, steering wheel, CAN bus, driver's door, blah, blah, blah. Let's have a look what it's unhappy about. Engine, message missing from steering wheel electronics. implausible message from steering wheel controller. So we've got no engine faults, it's just having trouble communicating with the steering wheel. So there might be a little squib problem there. ABS, happy. Air conditioning, happy. Central electric, just a CAN bus problem. Driver's control module, driver's side door. So it's losing communication with the driver's side door, which we know. Airbags, this is why the airbag light is on. Crash sensor for side airbag, rear passenger side. Supply voltage B, so that's a flat battery, old fault. But this is what's putting the light on. Defective intermittent mil on. So that's what we've got to look for the airbag. Steering wheel, no faults found. Instruments, no faults found. CAN bus, no communication with driver's side door module. No communication with steering column electronics. So I think there's something a bit intermittent with that steering column module. Door electrics. Supply voltage, driver's side door. Which if there's a break in the wire, it will keep losing its power and keep losing its CAN bus signal, which makes sense with a broken wire. Steering assist, central convenience, no communication with driver's side door, passenger side door, right mirror turn signal intermittent. I have to see if the indicator's working. Clear, 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 clear. So not too bad, pretty much everything we already knew. So the airbag light is on because of a side impact crash sensor here. Now, the airbag light is on 364 days of the year, and I just turn it off for the MOT, and it's fine until you do a really hard right corner and it comes on, it thinks you're having a crash. Which in this boat, the G-forces aren't that extreme, so I think it's probably a wire touching somewhere, and when you go around the corner, it's just maybe shorting out. So we've got to find out where that sensor is on the Mk5, and that's the only fault with the airbag. But I think I'm going to start looking at this front door, because it could even be the side impact sensor could be in the door itself. So if we sort the wiring in the door frame first and see if that turns off any other faults. I've just set the hazards on to have a look at this intermittent indicator, and as you can see, I think, oh, there we go, this one's on its last legs. Hopefully that'll flash bright enough on MOT day. But I just walked around and noticed hazards are all on. This one's not. But then as you close the door, you get your flash. So I think the door loses all power when it's open. So let's get this door off. Okay, I can't remember how much you can see behind the door cards on this, because most of the access, the outer panel actually bolts off, and that's where you get to the regulator and lock. But we're going to take this off now just because it's a bit easier to get to. So we've got a little T20 here, this pops up, a couple of T20 there's, and I think a couple at the bottom, and that should pop off. A bit bigger than a T20. Two T30s in there. Should pop off. Speaker, and door handle, and everything else is just on this grey plug there. So someone's definitely been in here before, because where the bolts go and where each clip goes, it's all been marked. So whether it's had a window regulator or something else, but in here I see there's been a repair for something and an extra yellow wire going in there. So could this be a repair that's now failed again? Let's have a look. Let's try and get this. These are nice and easy. Just need to pull that up. And that pops off. And then with that out of the way, you can get to this orange arm. Releases the loom. So we need to see where this yellow wire goes. It is red and yellow here. Yeah, I think I've found the problem. There's been a repair done in there and all the wires have come off. So I'm going to see if I can fish this loom out and get it out here rather than trying to do it in the corner there. Hopefully that boot will go inwards, because otherwise we'll get to the lock, which means this yellow wire probably now isn't attached to anything. There's our problem. So that would have gone to that one. So they might have been just touching in there, but when the door opened and closed, it wasn't. I've managed to release enough of this over, pull this through, and I've got to be honest, I'm surprised the door worked at all, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wires are all broken. Same that end. This is your main power wire, so this is what it's saying for the power. Without that big power on earth, nothing in this module will work. And I'm just looking here, wondering whether this is something airbag crash related, which could be our sensor. So I've got to look at what we can do with this mess. So what I'm going to use to repair these are actually crimps. So they're like the little fold over terminals like you see in the pins themselves, because what happens with solder is like this one here. You've soldered this joint and the solder actually runs up the wire both sides, so you have a big stiff bit about that long, and in a joint that means it can't bend. Whereas with this, there's no solder, so it's just as flexible as before. And a good crimp, I'm going to test myself here, is solid, because it cuts into the insulation and holds the wire as well. I can pull that as hard as I want and that's not going to break. So then you just heat shrink over that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to crimp all these, especially the bigger ones. You have to get so much heat in there to solder them. It ends up coming all the way back. This one's been soldered. Well, actually now, that's not actually connected. So ours are going to last. And here's the last one in. I had to reinstate that yellow wire that was already there, because it on this red and yellow, when I tested for continuity on the other end of this to here, that wasn't ringing out, so there must be a break somewhere in there, which is why they ran this yellow one. So that's all back in. You can see I've put quite a big extension on these. That's where the original join is, and that's where our new join is, and that's so we can do it as a pigtail, because we've got a nice big boot here. And then put it like as a big S, and that just takes some of the tension off it. So now these are all in, heat shrunk. We can pop them all in, feed this wiring back and plug it all in and see if we've had some success. Door card all back on. Easiest first test, we can put the lights on and see if these illuminate with the door open. And no more blinking. Right, let's check everything else. Right, let's check the door lock and light flashes, and we lock. Tick, tick, tick. And move on to the next one. No rear wiper still. Squirter, but no wiper. Maybe I'll take the boot panel off next and see if we've got power to the motor, or whether that's seized up. Just thought I'd have a go at working smarter, not harder, before I strip all the boot down. And I went into measuring blocks and can actually actuate everything on this list. High beams, fuel pump, interior. So we can do the front windscreen wipers. And there's no rear, but there is rear windshield pump, and if we do that, the wiper goes. But on the stalk, it doesn't. So that means the wiring in the back is fine, the motor's fine. I think it's this stalk here. or the connection to it. The other thing to check is rear fog light's not working. Fog lights. No, it's a reverse light. Backup lamps. Is working. So there's nothing wrong with the wiring in here. It must be all our switches. Lucky I didn't take the back panel off. Right, now we know the reverse light is working. It's got to be either the switch or the wiring. So if I bridge a switch in the gearbox and it comes on, we know we're looking at a duff switch. So the gearbox is under there. I reckon we have to take the airbox out and we should just be able to get to it. The good old 19 PD going on forever. Aha! There's the switch, and only one wire is connected. The other one has tried to be joined at some point, but that's why the reverse light's not working. Problem's going to be there's not a lot to join on there. Might have to get creative with this one. Getting hot. Attached. Slide it back in. Let's give it a test. Ignition on. Reverse. Another tick. While the boot's open, we better look at this headlining so we can get that sprayed up, let the glue dry. I'm not looking for a full retrim, just enough for me to be able to see out of the rear mirror again. Well, it's no charisma retrim, but at least now it is off our heads and I can see out the back. Really, the roof lining needs to come off and be stuck on properly like I did with my RS6 when I got that. But for this, that'll do. Right, on to the next one. So next up, I think we need to sort this rust. This is going to be the messy one I've been putting off, but I'm pretty sure I do still have the top half of the seal I cut off behind the kit car. Remember that? We really do need to crack on with this. Try and make some time. Here, yeah, here is that top half of the seal that I didn't use. Hopefully that end will be correct and I'll be able to cut that in, cover our hole. Let's have a measure up. Alright, I'm going to whip the door off because they're nice and easy. We know this comes out nice and easy like the other side. I'm pretty sure you just undo the retaining screw off the bottom and then undo the two bottom bolts off this one and it lifts off from what I remember. So let's have a look. Go. Off it comes. Well, now we can see the problem. Less than ideal. When I welded the sill in for the previous rust, you just usually join along this line, so you just put the lower half in so you don't have to get involved in the door shut or anything. And that's all still nice and structurally sound, but it must have crept up behind it and this has disappeared. So luckily I've still got that top half. Let's have a measure up, see if it fits in. This is the top section that I cut off, so just go to show, never chuck anything away because that will sit in there nicely. Does look like though the hole does go a little bit further up than this, so I might have to get a bit inventive, but let's clean this up and get chopping. So you saw me have a little chop around there and got the section we've got in, and as you can see it is a little bit short, so I just got to make a little filling piece there. And I know I said I wasn't going to cut it in flush, but well, couldn't help myself. So that's all going to sit in there nice. That'll run along there and then hopefully you're not even going to see it. So I've just got to make a little square to go in there. Show you it's been a while since I've had Mr. Mig out. need to get in past all these Zafira spares tucked away in the back. So let's have a clear out and get out Mr. MiG. And always disconnect the battery before welding, save killing all the ECUs. Negative off. Right, let's get this tacked on. And with a bit of creativity, we've got the top hole. I chopped the other end off that sill section, turned it round, and that fits in there nicely with a bit of manipulation. That looks good. I used to do this all the time, welding up rusty cars, making stuff fit, and I can honestly say I do not miss it. I was having a bit of trouble with my screen. I think it's not been used for so long. The batteries are flat in it, so it's more of a blink and weld. But I'll get this all buzzed round, bit of sealer, bit of paint, and this will be job complete in this corner. No more hole. And we're all in. My mask did kick in the end. Must have just been a little bit tired, but we are all connected. So I'll just knock the top off that, tidy it up. Try not to get too carried away with making it look pretty. Yes, don't get carried away, Ron. It doesn't matter what it looks like. No one's going to see it, he says as he's filling it all smooth. So that's going to come out well, just waiting for that to dry. One more thing was the brake pad warning light was on, and that's in this corner. So I'm going to whip the wheel off and see if we can sort this connector out. So a few months ago, the brake warning light came on because the pads were low, and I hadn't put discs on it in the 40,000 miles. It had quite a lip, so I put new discs, new pads on, plugged it all in, but the low pad warning light stayed on. And if you look at that, you can see all the terminals are all hanging out of the plug. So that's the problem. I think there's a problem in this plug, so the light is still on, even though the pads are all good. So I'm going to try and see if I can either repair this plug. Actually, looking at that, I think the wire's almost broken off. So let's open this up. And as a cheating fix, we can just join the wires together here and the light will never come on again. But as we've got the sensor, I'd rather keep them connected because then I'll know when the pads are low again. So we'll open up this plug, see if we can fix it. Well, we haven't got far. I just started unwrapping this to check under there, and someone has been here before. This is all wrapped in insulation tape. So I'm not sure what the reason that is. Unwrap it further. Ah, that'll be why it's not working, because just like the door, it's not connected. So if that's all it is, hopefully I can get these connected back up and the light will go out. So yeah, someone has been here before, and there must have been a break because we've got a join here, extra bit in, join there, extra bit in, but this one has come off. So I'll chop it back here and put my own extender in and just knock that down nice and smooth, so you can't even see the join now. So I'll give that a quick prime. Alright, let's plug it in and see if that's gone off the dash. Then we can just wrap this up. Right, let's have a look if we've got rid of our light. Ah, airbag fault's come back. Hood open, tailgate open, but no brake warning light. Winner, winner. Right, let's get these wrapped up. Be another tick. Flying along. It's got that taped up, plugged back in, so that's all working. Got this primed and sealed up all on the edge. So now you can't even tell a bit has been cut in. So luckily I've still got a bit of blue left from when we painted the seals. So I'll get that blued up and it really will be invisible. And all done. Well done, Ron, for not getting carried away, for just doing a quick patch up, as always. But yeah, that looks good. Won't have to worry about that again. Put the wheel back on. And we're back on the ground. So I'm just going to let that seal dry a little bit more, And the last thing I think we really need to look into is this airbag light. So what I want to do is see if it's the crash sensor or the wiring. Apparently the crash sensor is just in here, and there's one both sides. So if I swap them over, read the codes, and if it goes to that side, I know it's the crash sensor bad. So apparently it's in here somewhere. Oh yeah, you see the yellow airbag plugs down there? That is our sensor. So I'll pop this trim off, pop the other side off, and swap them over and see what the computer says. The plugs can be a pain. You have to push this green bit in before you click it. So push in, click, out. There it is. And the other one, and I'm just going to label it left and right so we don't get mixed up. Swap them over. Select module, airbag, no codes at the minute. Okay, so crash sensor, airbag, passenger side. So I'll swap the sensors over side to side, and the fault has moved from the driver's side to the passenger side, which means it is the sensor, not the wiring. So let's see what we can do about that. So also, while the computer's back open, we'll go into steering wheel electronics. I want to see if the rear wiper stalk is reading. So blinker, headlight flasher, high beam, front wipe. So I know the fronts work, so if I move the stalk, we have front wiper intermittent, stage 1, which is slow, and stage 2, which is fast, so that's receiving. Let's see if the rear's receiving as well. So the module is seeing that I'm moving it, and if I go to squirt, that is working. So the stalk's working, the module knows that the stalk is working, so why is it not telling the rear to go on? If we go back into central electrics, output tests, and we found rear windshield washer pump, which when I press start, does work. I've even gone as deep as look at the coding for the modules, just to see if for some reason it was uninstalled, but rear wiper is installed. Why is it not working? In steering wheel electronics, last one is a 2, rear wiper installed. Not working. Right, fronts, don't show off. All right, let's get this other door on now, with most things buttoned up. There we go. Holds itself on. Put these bolts back in. Shuts like a golf. So rear wiper, I'll pop the cover off to have an actual physical look to see if I can find out what was going on. Everything looks okay, but when I pop the boot off, guess what I found? Some previous joins and a loose white wire. It just so happens on the wiper motor are white wires. So I'm going to pull this back a bit. You can see they've all been joined at one point, but that would explain it. Why it works with the computer though, with the squirt, I do not know, unless it has another pulse just for a single squirt motion, but not for the actual wiper itself. Story of this car today. And with that panel out, you can see we've got 3 plugs here, and that's what attaches to that. So I'll see if I can get that out a bit so I can pull the boot back and maybe see where these joins are. Now this could be a problem because we've got 2 white wires broken and 2 white wires broken. Let's see if we can at least match up the brake marks, see which bit of insulation joins up. So exactly the same as the door. I have been having a tinker. The problem with every wire being white, you're not really sure what should go with what when they're all broken. So I did a bit of trial by fire and just tried them around a few different ways, but that's not getting me anywhere. So as always, knowledge is power. So I fired up the ELSA in and got the wiring diagram for the wiper. So this is the rear wiper here. This is the washer motor. And as you can see, it's a motor, but it's all controlled by a module. So it's very common with these CAN bus cars. So this wire coming down here is an ignition live. So the motor's always got an ignition live. This one here is an earth. So it's always got a constant power, constant earth, and then these two figure in. Here's the control module up the top. You've got two relays internally, and they switch from positive to negative, which in turn makes the motor either spin one way or the other way. So it either squirts to the front screen or the rear screen. That's done with these two relays. This also triggers across to the rear wiper, so it knows when you squirt the rear wiper, it turns it on in the module, which is why when I was triggering the module with VAGCOM, it was coming down and giving the wiper a pulse. But what I've got here is T5E is the plug, and these are the 5-pin connectors at the end of the loom. So I've got T5E, which is the plug, those coloured plugs, and I've got pin 4, pin 5, pin 3, so I can check where the pins are on the wiper and the pins are on the plug. As you can see, white, 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 brown for the earth. So let's check if we've got our positive and earth, and then we can link these up back to the plug in their right positions. And background on the motor, and this cover here does pop off, and you can see it's all controlled by modules in there. So now we've got our wiring diagrams and our pins, we can start checking what we've got in the plug. So I've just been ringing them out to the wiring diagram, got my pins on here and up to the plug. And so I've got these two the right way around now, but it still wasn't working. I found my earth was good up there, but we weren't getting that 12 constant volts. So I was just looking at the wires here, and this one that has been repaired, from the bottom here to one side of this join, getting a beep. To the other side of the joint, we're not. So here to here, there's a break in this wire that's actually been repaired. So this is our problem wire, why it's not working. But yeah, it's the one that looks okay is the one that's not okay. So we'll snip, snip, join, see if we've got a wiper. I've just took the heat shrink off and the joints look okay. So here, beep, here, it's not. See what is in this insulation. I've never seen a wire look so intact as this, but actually be broken. And there we go, there was our break inside what looks like a perfectly good wire. So if we just twisty, verify this works. Right, plugged back in. Yay! Got our wiper back. Right, I'll join this up the same as I joined up the door loom, and we'll be done. All repaired, all back together, plugged back in, and boom, all back together. Another tick. And then we'll finish off the roof liner. And the glue's dried. It's not great, but at least it's off our heads now. That'll do. So that's the back end all done as well. Electric's fully working. So now we've got heated rear screen, rear wiper and reverse light all working, which I haven't had for quite a long time. So I think now the very last thing left on the car is this airbag light, which I can't get to turn off now. There was a time where I could turn it off and it'd stay off for a few days, could get it through the MOT, but then as soon as you go around the corner again, it would pop back on. So something I'm just going to try, something we do at Auto Shack a lot is fit bucket seats or aftermarket steering wheels into cars, which then of course puts the airbag light on because the pre-tensioner is not plugged in. So we've got a little machine that can measure the resistance, and then we put in a resistor to mimic that, so when the airbag ECU does its checks, it thinks everything is okay. Which can see if we can get a resistance reading across it, and then if I can cheat it and put a little resistor in there, then that'll be happy days. So I'm not sure what range this is going to be on, so we'll try a few. We'll go on to ohms, and we've got 0. So let's test on the sensor and see if we get any readings. So no, unfortunately there must be some kind of electronics in here. It's not just a simple on-off switch. But I've just looked on eBay and I've seen one for £6.50 second hand. They're all about that, between £5 and £10. So I'll get that ordered, plug that in, then that'll be our jobs complete. We're back. So shout out to Stephen's VW breakers on eBay. I ordered this at 3:20 yesterday afternoon. 9 o'clock this morning, it came through the post and dropped on my letterbox. So we've got the new sensor, £6.49. Hopefully this will solve our problems. So I've just cleared all the airbag codes. Let's see if everything goes off. This is the first time in a very long time that I've looked at a completely clear dashboard like this. But finally we are there. Winner, winner. And that's the rear seats and all the rear trims back in, and the Golf is all back together, and for the first time in a very long time, maybe even in the entire time that I've owned it, everything is working. Every factory feature around the car is working exactly as VW intended. It's been a bit of everything this week. We've had diagnosis, we've had wiring, we've had fabrication, bit of paintwork, and as you can see, it's not always supercars and museum pieces. Sometimes we keep it real with the daily drivers as well. Now it might seem like there was a lot of wiring problems on this and lots of bodged repairs, but just remember this has done nearly 250,000 miles. And even in my ownership of 40,000 miles, I barely go more than 10 miles from my house, so that's a lot of door open, close, open, close. So the last set of repairs could have been in the first 100,000 miles. Now it's done another 100,000 miles and I've had to repair it again. So in the grand scheme of things, you can't really complain at that. So we are just 6,000 miles away from this 250,000 mile milestone. We are all set for the MOT. I can't see it having any problems getting through. I'm gonna give it a little hoover out to keep the MOT tester happy as well. And it's been good to give the Golf a little bit of time and a little bit of love because it is an absolute trooper. Just keeps going on and on and on. So make sure you give this video a like. Be sure to tune in next time because there's no telling what we have on the channel. But until next time, make sure you have fun. And of course, pass first time.